Welcome to Dad's Watching Sports. Michael Draper and Matt Kirk. We're going to be joined later in the show by Kyle Castles, our third co-host, but we appreciate you checking us out. So this is the show for episode 36 on Sunday, October 11th, but we're actually recording an interview, and we'll get to our guest in just a second, on Friday the 9th. So some of the information might be slightly dated, but it should still be relevant. But thanks so much for checking out the show. You can download our podcast, Dad's Watching Sports, anywhere you listen to podcasts. You can also check us out on the All Access Sports Network page on Sundays at 8:30 if you're streaming us live on Sunday night. We appreciate that. As I mentioned, Michael Draper and Matt Kirk will be joined in just a few minutes by Kyle Castles. But right now, we've got the great pleasure of being joined by Stewart Mandel of The Athletic. He is the editor-in-chief for college football of The Athletic. Stewart, thanks so much for joining us today. How are you?
I'm great. How are you guys?
We are doing great. Also, Stewart co-hosts the Audible podcast with Bruce Feldman. So, Stewart, just tell us a little bit about yourself, about your work, maybe a little bit about your family as well.
Yeah, so like you said, since 2017, I've been covering college football for 2 decades, and a big chunk of that was for Sports Illustrated, and then for 3 years at Fox Sports. But since 2017, very proud of the work we've done at The Athletic, launching the college football from scratch, and building it up to what it is now. And Bruce and I have been doing the Audible since we were both at Fox in 2014. We went through a period there where it was an independent podcast. Now it's part of the Athletics podcast network. And to the theme of this show, I'm a very proud father of a 4.5-year-old daughter who is just an absolute delight. And this season, for the first time, is starting to become a little bit aware of what college football is and football in general. And breaks my heart a little bit when she says NFL. I'd rather she focus on college, but we're probably still a year away from her actually having the attention span to sit down and watch a game. But I'm just glad that she now knows like what a touchdown is and that sort of thing.
Oh yeah. So I have a 4-year-old daughter as well. Matt's got a 1.5-year-old, and I teared up a little bit the other day. My daughter, we're Kentucky fans in our household, and my daughter said "Go Big Blue," and I got a little misty-eyed. I was like, "Oh, you finally get it! You finally get it." That it is. It absolutely is. And I've got some family that's Alabama that actually worked for the program, and she said, "But we don't say Roll Tide, Daddy." And I said, "No, daughter, no, sweetie, we sure do not." So tell us just a little bit about The Athletic, what you guys do over there. I know I appreciate all the coverage that you guys give to really across the board, but tell us a little bit about The Athletic and where you can find your work on The Athletic.
Right. So The Athletic is a subscription sports site, and it came along at a time when there was a lot of, a lot of doom and gloom in our industry. A lot of very high profile people losing their jobs, and the traditional model of giving away the content for free and supporting it with ads was just broken. And it's been very encouraging to see the response. I mean, 3 years time to go from 0 to 1 million subscribers. And in the college football space, that meant pretty rapid expansion. We started with 7 writers just kind of spread across the country covering the sport nationally. And over the last 3 years, we've been able to, we still have brought in Bruce Feldman and Andy Staples on the national side, but also we now have writers dedicated to about 25 major programs. So we think it's the most comprehensive college football coverage out there. And obviously it's journalism. It's not clickbait. It's not slideshows. So we're very proud of the work that we're doing, and thrilled that, that we've dispelled the doubters who thought, oh, why would anybody pay for sports writing? You pay because it's the best product out there. And certainly the bundle where we're not just covering college football, we cover The Athletic has people everywhere. And so, you find out there's a lot of people out there who, and maybe you guys are like this, that they follow their favorite college team, and maybe they follow like a pro team in their market, but they also have an interest in the LA Lakers, or they are obsessed with the baseball free agency, and pretty much anything you name, we have some really good people covering it.
Yeah. So I know, a lot of dads out there are like, man, I would love to be able to cover sports for a living. So just tell us a little bit about kind of your career path and how you ended up in the position that you're at.
Yeah, I mean, I somebody asked me this just yesterday, and I said, I'm one of the rare people who decided what they were going to do for a living when they were a kid and followed through with it. Um, my dad. I grew up in Cincinnati with my dad, getting me hooked on the Reds and the Bengals, and not so much college football then, but college basketball for sure. And introducing me to the sports section, reading this newspaper sports section every day. And so I dreamed of being one of the people that was, whose name was in the paper, and did all the steps along the way of writing for the high school paper and the college paper. I went to Northwestern for journalism, and couldn't have told you that I would uh, end up spending my whole career focused on this one sport for the most part. Um, but it was the sport that I fell in love with, especially when I was in college, when I happened to go to Northwestern when they went to the Rose Bowl, and really
Nice.
fell in love with college football. And just the way that the dominoes fell in terms of the opportunities I got first um, I had an internship coming out of college at ESPN magazine, and once they found out that college football was my thing, kind of just, focused on that. That led to a kind of an extended internship, if you will, at
Mhm.
ABC when they were broadcasting the BCS, and they had a website devoted to college football. And then my first full time gig was at what was then CNNSI in Atlanta.
Yeah.
If anybody remembers
Oh
the
yeah.
failed experiment that was CNN Sports Illustrated, and then moving to New York and going with on Sports Illustrated itself. So um, just very fortunate that when they say, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" Then I was actually able to fulfill that.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're all dads here, and we all try to balance out the work life schedules and I can imagine it's the same for you. Following and covering college sports and all sports in general. So what does that look like with having a 4.5-year-old, and then also just trying to stay on top of the latest in what is a crazy already college football season?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing once you become a parent is you're just not as flexible as you used to be. You can't just drop everything. There's certainly been occasions when news breaks during a time when we don't have childcare, and my wife has a big career as well, and frankly, a more demanding job even than mine. So there have been a lot of times when I had to stick her in front of a tablet and do my work, or beg a babysitter to stay longer. But I'm glad that I am where I am. I mean, younger in my career, I wouldn't have had as much control over my schedule. I'm very lucky that we have a whole. I'm not. There have been times when I was the only one at the company that covered college football, or I was one of two, and we have 30 something writers, and I don't have to feel like I have to jump on everything. That we have great people that it's something in the Big 12. Max Olson, there's nobody better than him on that.
Yeah.
Certainly in the SEC, Andy Staples is the guy, and
Yep.
just the confidence I have in our team, certainly helps to be able to do something that um, never really stops. The news cycle is 24/7, but that I can feel confident that from 5 to 8, I can uh, be with her and have dinner with the family, and not worry that the website's going to crumble.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, you guys do a fantastic job. We're talking with Stewart Mandel, the editor in chief of the Athletic for college football. So, Stewart, another question that I wanted to bring up was you recently tweeted we are now simultaneously covering a season and a preseason, and that's absolutely true with the Big Ten and the Pac-12 having not yet started. So, what does that look like for you guys having to cover actual games followed up by camp and teams getting ready to play over the next month or so?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty. I'm reminded of that every time I load our app, and I follow every on my on the app. You just choose which teams or leagues you follow, and so I have every college football team that we cover, and it'll be like something about Georgia, Tennessee, something about Miami, Clemson, and then early position battles at Penn State. It's really like they're on just two completely different time frames. As we're recording this, the Pac-12 is the teams are opening training camp. I prefer this very much. I, it's not ideal, but I'm glad we reached the point where we did, because when we were in that window where it seemed like it was going to be a split season, where the SEC and the ACC and the Big 12 were going to play, and the Big 10 and Pac-12 were going to sit out until January. It just wasn't. It wasn't. I mean, every conference has to make their own decision, but it just wasn't good for the sport to have 40% of the country with no vested interest. And you're seeing that. The early season TV ratings have not been close to what they normally would be.
Yeah.
And understandably so. Big Ten fans don't have a horse in the race right now. So once they're back online, certainly once everybody's back online, I mean, there's going to be like a 6 or 7 week period where we actually have a complete season. It'll be weird when you've got some teams that are 5-6 games into their season and some that are just starting up. It actually, Thursday night's game, I don't know if you guys saw it, but Houston Tulane, and they have their records on the graphic the whole time. And 2-1 or 3-1 Tulane against 0-0 Houston.
Yeah, I saw that.
It was weird, but I'm glad we've reached that point. This past week, like once the SEC came back, it started to feel more like a real season, and it'll certainly feel that much more so on October 24th when we're able to watch Ohio State and Penn State and Michigan.
Yep.
And I tell you, I bet Ohio State, I bet who they're rooting for is whoever is playing Alabama. I know they can't stand them. And speaking of Alabama, they have a big game against Georgia. What do you think the keys are for Georgia to beat Alabama on the 17th?
Yeah, so gosh, first of all, it's going to be an amazing matchup. I think with Georgia, we're still kind of we know they're really good on defense. We're still kind of seeing the offense evolve, after all the uncertainty over their quarterback situation. And so I think back to the Georgia LSU SEC championship game. Georgia had one of the best defenses in the country, and they still couldn't stop Joe Burrow and LSU. And I don't know if Mac Jones and those guys are quite on that level, but they're really good. And so for Georgia to beat them, I just don't think it's realistic that their defense is going to come out and hold that offense to 10 points. So they're going to have to be able to score themselves and kind of get away from the traditional Kirby Smart formula of ball control and just dominant defense and take care of the ball. No, they're going to need to put up some points. They're going to need to make some big plays. And so far, at least, it does look like they have more guys that can do that, certainly than last season. But I think that will be the game where we know for sure.
Yeah, and I tell you, watching, I'm an Arkansas fan, so I was excited to see the way the Razorbacks played against Georgia. And I'm sure that defensive front from Alabama will get pressure on Georgia. I think that's going to be the big keys to get pressure on their quarterback and get where he can't just go back there and sit in the pocket and pick them apart. Then I have my next question here. So Nick Saban is undefeated against former staff members of his. What do you think helps him be so successful against people that used to work for him?
I just think that, everybody loves to bring up that stat, and I understand, but he's successful against everybody.
Yeah.
Other than Hugh Freeze. Hugh Freeze was the one coach who seemed to have his number there for at least a couple of years. But just think, when you are as dominant a program as they've been, they rarely lose more than one game in a season. So, and a lot of his assistants have taken, Kirby would be an exception to this, but a lot of his assistants have taken on rebuilding projects. And, it's just not realistic that Jeremy Pruitt was going to come out and beat him right off the bat with the situation that he inherited at Tennessee. Muschamp at South Carolina, they don't have the talent level Alabama does. Kirby's the one who, if anybody's going to do it, it should be him. And they've come as close as you possibly can. 2nd and 26, right? If they can stop that play, Georgia probably beats him and wins the national championship. And then the next year's SEC title game, obviously, they had a great opportunity. So this year's matchup, it could be the first of a couple or even several if they both make the playoffs. So it kind of does feel like if Kirby's going to do it, it should be this year.
Last couple of questions here with Stewart Mandel. Stewart, so what are your expectations for the Pac-12 and the Big Ten once they kind of, come back in with everybody else? Do they have a shot to make some noise, to make a run at the playoff? What are your expectations there?
I think the Big Ten certainly does, though. Their champ may have to run the table. You're playing fewer games like that, but once the Pac-12 announced they were going to do a 7-game schedule, then you kind of realize like, well, the Big Ten 9 games is actually not that different than what the SEC and we also don't know if the SEC and ACC teams are going to get in all their games. We're starting to reach that point where games that get canceled and they keep getting canceled, you may run out of room to make them up. So, I think the Big Ten, certainly, the reputation Ohio State has, the fact that they were on the short list to begin with, I think certainly they have a shot. Pac-12 fans disagree with me, but I don't see how a team that plays 7 games in a conference that's not all that respected to begin with will be taken seriously in the playoff unless it's just anarchy in the other conferences and nobody has a team that has fewer than 2 losses or something like that. But, how do you, if you're USC or Oregon, how do you impress the committee? I mean, even if you go out and dominate every week, because they didn't play non-conference games, like the Pac-12 was supposed to play Ohio State, Oregon, and USC, Alabama, and Michigan, Washington. And if they had won some of those games, it would have elevated the stock of the whole conference. But without that opportunity, they're still the conference that hasn't made the playoff in 3 years and hasn't won a big non-conference game like that in a long time. So and we'll see it. I mean, a lot of people have said to this point, the committee seems to value more than anything, much like the AP poll, how many games you lost. Undefeated is before 1. So yeah, I could, if it's 7-0 Pac-12 champ and it gets that 4th spot and the best candidate has 2 losses, that'll be a very tough decision for them to make. But it just doesn't seem fair to me that you would reward the team that didn't have to test themselves an additional 4 times, especially in the case of the SEC where it's conference only. So those 4 extra games were against decent competition, not against the kind of FCS low-level group of 5 games that those teams sometimes play.
Yeah, absolutely. Last question here for you. So, it seems like every year we have a conversation about, either Texas is back or when Michigan hired Harbaugh, Michigan's back. USC is going to make a run. We thought Florida State might do that under their previous coach as well. If you had to look at those 4 teams, so Texas, Florida State, USC, and Michigan. Now, I know Florida State made the first ever college football playoff, but we'll kind of leave that out. Who do you think gets back there first? And does their current coach get them there?
I wish we weren't recording this the day before the Red River game. My opinion on Texas and Tom Herman might change depending on the result of that game.
Sure, but,
yeah. Texas is the one where, like my thing about Michigan is if you can't get it done under Harbaugh, I don't know there's nobody could say like they hired the wrong coach. He was the perfect hire for that program. And if they're going to be a 9-4 kind of team for perpetuity, I'm not sure there's some other coach that's going to come in and is definitely better. USC, I don't think is going to reach the promised land under Clay Helton, but I think under another coach, they have everything in place to win and to compete for national championships. And Texas does too. And again, that's a situation where everybody wanted Tom Herman. You can't go back and say like they hired the wrong guy. Everybody wanted Tom Herman at that time. And the fact that they haven't broken into that next tier yet is a little bit puzzling. So I know I haven't actually picked one of the schools you mentioned, but I'm inclined to think that, if USC replaces Clay Helton with a really good coach, that they could get back pretty quickly because they've done it before. They have the great recruiting backyard, and it's just, they're in the Pac-12 and there's no program in the Pac-12 that has a huge advantage over USC. It's the other way around. Like when they've got the right coach in place, it's hard for the other teams, even Oregon, to match up with them.
For sure. Well, Stewart, thanks so much for joining us on Dad's Watching Sports. We really appreciate your time and all your insight, and just enjoyed getting to know you and talking about your family life as well.
Appreciate it. Thanks, guys. Enjoy watching the games.
All right. We'll be right back with more Dad's Watching Sports right after the break. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, the Dad's Watching Sports podcast has some exciting news for you. You guys have heard us talk about the RTF Sports Network. You can check out our show there, streaming each and every week on their Facebook page. And, of course, our podcast on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 11 a.m. Eastern. Well, the RTF Network is rebranding to the All Access Sports Network. We're super excited about this and looking forward to providing our listeners all access to the world of sports, and in our case, dad life. Stay tuned for more information about the All Access Sports Network. And we're back here on Dad's Watching Sports. Michael Draper and Kyle Castles. Kyle, I know you weren't able to sit in on that interview with us with Stewart on Friday, but great interview, some really great insight, not only on how he got to where he is as the editor-in-chief of one of the most predominant sports publications in the country, but then also just his thoughts on college football and the craziness that is college football so far in 2020. So it's a great interview.
Yeah, I hate that I missed it, but I loved his insight, especially that last question. Looking at, I guess, can I call them the Blue Bloods? I mean, Texas, yes. SC, yes. Michigan, yes. Florida State, kind of, they don't go back as far as the other three as far as the greatness, but yeah, some of these Blue Bloods in college football and like who's going to get turned around first. I think he's right. I think Texas is the right pick of those four. I mean, and he's right about Michigan. If Harbaugh is going to win you, 8, 9, 10 games a year, and that's it, I don't see anybody else walking into Michigan and winning you national titles.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. And I thought with what he said about USC, I mean, like he said, I mean, they've got everything you could ever want in a football program. And they've been there, within the past decade or so. So they're a team that I think you get a couple of breaks and you get a different coach in there they can be in. So we're going to bring Matty on. Matt, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are y'all doing?
Man, we're good. We were just talking about our interview with Stewart. It was a really great interview. So I hope everybody enjoyed that. And thanks to him for doing that. And hopefully we'll have some of his counterparts there at the Athletic join us over the next couple of weeks to talk maybe some college basketball, which is coming up in the next month, maybe some NFL and some golf as well as we get ready for the Masters in just the next couple of weeks. But guys, let's go ahead and move forward in the show. We've got a lot to talk about. There's a lot going on. First, I had to tell you guys about this. And Kyle, I know you and I both share our the same vehicle that our family drives.
Well, we don't share the same vehicle. It's not like we have one vehicle, but we drive the same.
We drive the same. Yes. So for those of you that are wondering what that is, and I know all of you are, it's a Honda Odyssey minivan. And Kyle, so this afternoon we had noticed the tire pressure in Suzanne's van was a little low on one of the tires, and so I thought, you know what, I'll do my due diligence and I'll jack it up. I'll take the tire off and make sure that there's not a nail or screw or something in there to do it. And let me just ask you, have you ever had to access the jack/spare tire in your minivan?
I have not. I know it's back there in the back under the floor, but I have not had to. Right?
Are you sure?
Let me rephrase. That's where I thought it was. Well, not maybe in the floor or in the wall or something right there, right?
Okay. Well, maybe our van is just different than yours because ours is very strategically placed under the console between the driver and the passenger front seat.
Wait, seriously? Maybe
yes.
that's where ours is. I don't know.
Yeah. So if you're thinking, like if you're driving, you're in the driver's seat and you've got the passenger seat beside you, you've got the console in the middle. I can't remember. Do you guys have captain's bucket seats in the second row?
Second row, yeah.
Okay. So between the captain's chairs and the console, there is a little area underneath that rug where you can lift up, and there lies your jack and your spare tire. Very interesting, yes. And so, as you can imagine, trying to take out the spare tire, or not the spare tire, but at least the jack and all that, while two car seats are sitting in the seats of the captain's chairs, it made me scratch my head to think like, okay, this is a minivan. It's for families with young kids who are going to have car seats in these seats, and you shove the spare tire / jack and all of that under that area, and it was very frustrating and very surprising.
I thought you were saying it was between the driver's seat and the passenger seat in the front. You're saying it's between the two captain's chairs.
But it's kind of tucked under the console. So you have to like pull it out and then up It's very weird. You just I tell you what, after the show, go check it out, and I want to hear your thoughts on this because it was definitely something that I was not kind of ready for when I did that. So I wanted to get your take on that. Guys, we got to talk some college football. There is a lot to talk about in college football. Well, one of the very first things I wanted to bring up was Dan Mullen, the coach of the Florida Gators, made some interesting comments after their loss to Texas A&M. So I don't know if TJ is watching this, but TJ, if you are, we'd love to hear your thoughts on the game. Congratulations to your Aggies. But some very interesting comments, Matt, by Dan Mullen, essentially saying, there was a lot of fans present for that game at Kyle Field there at Texas A&M, which there were. I mean, I watched a lot of that game and thought, man, this place is packed. And he's wanting to open it up at the Swamp next weekend for their game against LSU, saying let's pack the Swamp. Obviously, we are still knee deep in COVID, and a lot of places are not having any fans, if not only just a little. So, Matt, what are your thoughts on Mullen's comments and wanting to pack the Swamp?
Man, if you ask me, that kind of sounds like an excuse of a loser. I don't like Dan Mullen anyway, to be honest. It just kind of seems like he's crying a little bit for no reason. I don't know what the situation at the Swamp is like, if they're having fans or not, but Texas A&M's having them, so more power to them. We're in weird times. Quit crying, Dan, and get back to coaching your team because it looks like you got a lot of work to do.
So, Kyle, I'll toss it to you. Dan Mullen, a former coach of your Mississippi State Bulldogs. What are your thoughts on his thoughts on packing the Swamp?
Yeah, that's not going to happen. I think best case for Coach Mullen would be kind of what he saw at A&M with about 25% capacity. There's no way, and I understand that Governor DeSantis down there in Florida is a conservative who is pushing for opening everything back up, but I don't think the school administration agrees there. So maybe he can get 25%, but 25% was enough for the Aggies to take down his Gators. So maybe it's enough for his Gators to take down the Tigers.
I hear what you're saying, and I'll maybe we can get a comment from TJ here in a second. But there is no way on God's green earth that there were 25% of the fans at Texas A&M. There were probably 70,000 people at that game.
No.
Yes,
did you look at the pictures?
Yes, it was packed. It was
24,000 people, Michael.
No, there's no way there were 24,000.
I take the actual attendance.
The actual attendance lied because it was jam packed in there. Now the Florida sections were not full, but Texas A&M, there is no way that they had less than 50,000 fans there. No,
boy, I tell you what, that sure sounds like you're crying too, Michael.
I'm not crying. My team won this weekend, unlike both of y'all. So I'm not doing any crying.
You got screwed for one.
Oh, you did. No, you guys just couldn't handle it. Well, let's get into. No, I'm talking to Arkansas. You got to be there. Like you got to be there, be like a team that's there to win it, Matt. And Arkansas can't figure that out. So let's talk some NCAA football. The Aggies got a big win at Florida. Missouri shocked us all and took down LSU. We had a shootout in the Red River rivalry, and then Bama had a pretty big scare
against
Red River rivalry.
Say it, shootout.
Well, they you know what? That's probably the cancel culture that said, "Hey, we can't have the word rivalry because that's too sensitive." So we're gonna call it a shootout because that's a little bit more.
Can't say shootout because shootout.
That's true.
Shootout refers to guns, and guns are evil.
That's true. Here we go. TJ says 25% of fans and 50% of students. See, TJ knows exactly. Their student section was packed for that.
TJ, we don't need you to take Mike's side here.
Yeah, yes, we do.
TJ.
Yeah, yes, we do. Especially after he called me out last week. So, so guys, all those games that went down this weekend, and Kyle, we'll definitely bring up your boys going down again on Saturday to the Cats. But Matt, what are some thoughts that you have on college football this past weekend? There's a lot of good games.
Man, I tell you, that Ole Miss Alabama game, that was a thriller. If you ask me, I think that Kiffin's got them back. I don't think that they're necessarily ever going to win anything, kind of like what Leach is going to do. I think that they're going to win some games, but they're going to upset some people, but I don't think they'll ever get to the big show. I think that they're both kind of a gimmick, I guess in a way. Where it's, it goes against the grain, but I don't think it's ever going to be enough to ever do anything. But to me, I thought it was crazy that Oklahoma tried every single way possible to give that game to Texas, and Texas just couldn't grab it.
They couldn't.
Yeah, even there at the end, whenever he shanked that kick, you have to think that Tom Herman's seat's getting pretty hot.
Yeah, this was the year for Texas to win that game and to really kind of propel themselves back into, maybe some of the national spotlight. And they crapped the bed for sure. And that was a tough game. Kyle, what about some initial thoughts from you about the football weekend?
Look, we've been waiting. I'm going to wait on Matt because Matt is like making all sorts of noise. He sounds like a fat man eating pasta over there with his heavy breathing.
Oh man, I'm gonna mute you both.
I am fat and I like pastas, Kyle. So shut up.
No, so we've been waiting for a long time to see Jimbo and Kellen Mond get a big win down there in College Station, and we finally see it. Now, is that going to turn into a bunch of big wins? I don't know, but finally we can say Jimbo's got a signature win there at A&M, and so A&M, that should take some heat off of him for a little bit. Missouri beating LSU. I mean, to me, that's the shock of the day. Missouri is I would say a terrible team, but I'm also a Mississippi State fan, and so are we. The Red River Shootout. I think the question coming out of there is who is Oklahoma's quarterback? I don't think we know. I guess Spencer Rattler, he came back in, so maybe he's going to be the guy. Who knows at this point? And then, that Bama game was, the Alabama defense is not what we've seen in the past. We're seeing a lot of offense, but not a ton of defense. And so it's interesting. It's interesting what we're seeing this year in college football.
Yeah, it always seems like Ole Miss just has Alabama's number. I know they didn't win the game, but man, you look over the past really 5 to 10 years, and they just always play them tough. Usually, specifically in Oxford, I know usually when they end up going to Tuscaloosa, it's a different story. But Ole Miss just finds a way to hang around with Bama, and more often than not. TJ says A&M finally found out they have to establish a running game in the SEC. A few key stops on defense, it all adds up. Absolutely.
You know what, TJ, you're absolutely right. I was watching that A&M game. I mean, they came out in the second half and just said, we're going to be better than you up front. And they dared Florida to stop them. Florida could not stop that running game. So very astute take, TJ Burns.
Absolutely. So it's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out, and then just in a couple of weeks, we've got the Big Ten coming back, and then in November, the Pac-12. So it's starting to feel a little normal. And again, when you got 75,000 people there at Kyle Field, it definitely feels normal. Guys, we're going to move on, and I'm shifting up some of our topics here because the Los Angeles Lakers are now the NBA world champions. They just won in Game 6. Just absolutely demolishing the Miami Heat in that game. You could just tell the Heat were out of gas. They played really well throughout the finals, but tonight they were just completely overmatched by a much better team. So congratulations to the Lakers. Kyle, your initial thoughts on this, the finals wrapping up, and just how the NBA was able to bring the bubble in and kind of get things back going.
Yeah, I think the bubble was perfect for the NBA. I think them and the NHL are kind of the model sports leagues for how this should have been done everywhere. NFL probably needed to follow suit, considering what all they're going through. I think the big thing walking out of this is LeBron's legacy, right? Like that's what everything's been about. That's what it's going to continue to be about. He's now won 4 titles in 10 tries, and I understand that's not 6 for 6, but that's 10 times versus 6 for Jordan. So I think there's something to be said there. The interesting thing, Jimmy Butler said it Friday night that he left everything on the court. He absolutely left everything on the court Friday night. That guy had 12 points tonight.
Yeah.
He had nothing else, and I mean it was obvious the Heat just ran out of gas against this Lakers team that was built to do exactly what they did. What they did,
yeah. And the Heat. I mean, if you're a Heat fan, I think you've got to feel really good about your team. I mean, they're so young with the core of Butler and Bam and Hero and Duncan Robinson and Dragic. I mean, they're a young team. They're built to if they can keep that core together and add a few more pieces. They are really built to make another run at that next year. So I think you've got to feel good coming as the 5 seed going into the playoffs and then coming out and ended up making it all the way to the finals. Matt, I know you're not a fan of LeBron, but I will give you a lot of credit. You at the very beginning when all these sports started coming back, or the talk of it, you said the bubble's the way to go. The NBA did the bubble and they got it right. So did NHL. So your thoughts on the NBA, just the way they got everything together, and the Lakers coming away with the championship?
Well, unfortunately for Queen James, Curry's going to be back. And at the beginning of next season, he's going to come back, and the Warriors will be just as good. Clay will be back. So I don't think that LeBron's going to get him another one. I think they'll get knocked out whenever they play Golden State. And that's all I've got to say about that.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what this Lakers team looks like next year.
I'm happy for Anthony. I'm happy for Anthony Davis, the best player on the team. That's for sure.
Well, I'm not going to disagree with that. As a former Cat, the Unibrow, he brought a title to Lexington, which is the greatest college basketball program in the country, and he brought a title back to LA, which is now arguably the best NBA franchise, as they have now passed the Celtics in terms of titles.
Hey, there's two Cats, right? The two Cats on
oh yeah, Rondo,
Rajon,
and the coach Frank Vogel did not play at Kentucky, but was an assistant coach / like grad assistant under Tubby Smith. Tubby Smith. So yeah, there's all kinds of Cats. There's no doubt about that, and that's why they're winning the NBA championship. Well, congratulations to the Lakers. That really pains me to say that because I'm not a fan, but congratulations to the Lakers. We'll talk about it later on in the show about does the NBA get a full season in next year? That's going to be interesting to see. Guys, let's talk MLB playoffs. We are in the championship series. You see our backdrop here. We've got the Atlanta Braves and the Dodgers. They'll be starting things off on Monday. We do have the Rays and the Astros. Astros making a run. And we've got the Rays who knocked out the Yankees, Kyle, in that. And it's actually 2-1 Rays in the bottom of the sixth of game one. So the Rays looking like they might pull out a win in game one. But, Matt, you've got those two matchups. Anything that stands out to you in either one of those championship series?
No, not particularly. I think it's interesting that Houston's there. I don't think they should be able to compete in the postseason this year, just to be honest, but that's a whole nother story. But I do hope that it comes down to the Dodgers and the Rays. I think that the Rays would be a really cool story with everything that, that they've gone through with their sports teams.
Yeah. Well, Kyle, I know you've got a different take on who you think would be the hottest matchup for Major League Baseball. What do you think about the championship series?
I don't want to see the Astros get out of the ALCS, but let's just be really honest. How fitting would it be for baseball to end this season with Dodgers, Astros in the World Series and Dodgers winning the World Series over the Astros after the Astros cheated them out of it in 3 years ago now? I think that would just be almost like a movie. So
if it happens, do the Dodgers bring a trash can on the field?
If I'm the Dodgers, absolutely. I'm doing anything I can to refer to them as cheaters. It may be like walking up to bat, everybody looking at the pitcher going, "You're a cheater," and every time somebody says Astro comes to bat, "You're a cheater," and just call them cheaters on the field. There's not going to be any fans. Might as well make sure everybody hears it at home.
Yeah, absolutely. For me, I'll be honest. I've never really seen myself as a Braves fan. Growing up in Mississippi, that was really the closest team, but never really liked them. But it's I'll be honest, it's good to see the Braves back in contention. I think just growing up in the 90s and seeing them, year after year, kind of always the bridesmaid, never the bride. They finally kind of got over the hump that was in 96, or 97. But the Braves back, I think that's pretty exciting stuff to see them back. And it's definitely going to be an interesting deal to see here. So TJ's got one more comment. I'll bring it up really quickly before we go on. He says, not to backtrack, guys, but back to college football. The Georgia Bulldogs think they're flying under the radar, or are they buying what they have done, or are you buying what they've done so far? We're actually going to pick their game later in the show against Bama. I am all in on Georgia, and we'll get to that in a little bit later. But TJ, thanks for bringing that up. We'll touch base on that here in just a little bit. All right, guys, this next topic, I know that Matt and Kyle are extremely excited to talk about. Me, not so much, but I watch just because my wife likes it, and she watches a lot of sports around her house. And that is the return of The Bachelorette, Kyle. I know that you and Lauren and Matt, I know you and Emma are diehard fans of the Bachelorette franchise. It's coming back on Tuesday night this week. So, Matt, I've got to toss it to you first, man, and ask you, how excited are you to be back in Bachelor/Bachelorette Nation?
Well, I don't watch The Bachelorette because there's too much man drama, and I am not a fan of the man drama. In fact, I think that should completely take your man card away, which I know what TJ is going to say is that if you have to have a man card, you aren't one anyway. But I'll say this, that there should be zero men in this world that love to watch that kind of drama with other men being involved. If it was The Bachelor, boy, I tell you, I'd have my popcorn already popped.
I don't know that I get your logic there. To me, it's the exact same show. It just happens to be more men on one side and more women on the other side.
Yeah, but you see the men acting like a bunch of women, Michael. You have to watch it to understand it.
Well, I don't watch it, so I guess I don't understand it. But Kyle, I know you do. So your thoughts on being excited for The Bachelorette coming back?
Well, I will say I don't get that excited. It's fun to watch Lauren get excited, and she does, and she's looking forward to Tuesday. I tend to watch it with either a phone or a computer in my face, and I kind of listen to what's going on a little bit. But I am curious. I think this is going to be an interesting season. I'm curious to see how COVID changes things. I mean, Bachelor and Bachelorette are known to kind of take world vacations throughout the show, and with COVID, are they going to travel at all? Do they stay in the United States, or do they just stay in the mansion there and it looks like Malibu or wherever it is. So I'm interested. That's kind of what I'm interested in.
Yeah. Well, I tell you something that I'm interested in. I just found out tonight, actually, is The Amazing Race comes back this week, which I'm very excited. They actually recorded it way before COVID, so they got all it done. But that's one of my shows, so I'm excited. I will be watching The Amazing Race and not The Bachelorette, although it will be on in my house for sure. Guys, we're going to go to a quick break. When we come back, we got a lot of topics, but one thing we're going to talk about is there is another quarterback with the last name Manning that has got a lot of people talking. So we'll talk about that and more. We'll be right back on Dad's Watching Sports. Y'all come back and join us. Coming up next week on Dad's Watching Sports, we recap the battle of the SEC as superpowers collide in Tuscaloosa, Georgia heading to T-Town to take on the Crimson Tide and Nick Saban. Also, the dads discuss the best Halloween candy and some of their favorite Halloween memories over the years. And the guys take your votes on the next bracket. All of that and more coming up on next week's episode of Dad's Watching Sports. Welcome back to Dad's Watching Sports. Michael Draper, Kyle Castles, Matt Kirk. We always want you to interact with us. If you hear us reading comments during the show, that is comments that are being displayed during our live stream on Sundays at 8:30 p.m. Central. But if you don't check us out on our Facebook page or on YouTube, if you just listen to the show, we want you to interact with us as well. You can always shoot us a comment, shoot us an email at dadswatchingsports@gmail.com, and we'd love to hear from you. And we'll talk about it throughout the show as well. So guys, I got to get to a couple of comments that came through during the commercial break. So TJ says, wait, you mean there are actually shows that are not sports related? Excuse me, TJ, I will say there are a few that come on the Draper household that I'll watch that aren't sports related, but a majority of us, we know we're just watching sports. And then Triple Shot Sports, The Bachelorette, I'd rather poke my eyeballs out with a rusty spoon. Yes, I completely agree with that. The only thing that I remember from The Bachelorette, and Kyle was telling you about this before we started the show, was a couple of seasons back, and I couldn't tell you anything about it other than the fact that one guy called the other guy he literally called him the other guy throughout the entire show, which I thought was a hilarious troll move. But that's all I really know about the show. So guys, let's get into a couple of topics here. First off, we'll get into the NFL. There's a lot going on in the National Football League. It's been every week has just been kind of crazy, and now we've just had all this stuff to do with COVID. So Kyle, what stood out to you from the NFL this week as we were in week 3, 4 of the season? 5? Okay.
Yeah.
Let's let you show how much I've been watching.
So I actually have something written down because I thought it was impressive, but I just got probably 15, 20 minutes ago, ESPN notification. The Falcons have fired their head coach, Dan Quinn, and their GM, I want to get his name right, Thomas Dimitroff. So fired.
Is he part of the KGB?
He might be. That might be their problem. Like you hired a Russian to run a football team. But you have two firings there in Atlanta, and an 0-5 start with the kind of talent and I know they've been decimated with injuries, especially in their defensive secondary. I get all that, but just the talent that they have there in Atlanta, you don't expect to see that. So I will say that, and then if nobody says the other thing that I mentioned, I'll jump back in.
Okay. Well, before we get to Matt and some NFL talk, a lot of the times our wives like to call us out on this show, and I got to let mine. She said, my wife says, "What I missed the Bachelorette convo," and then she said, "Don't let Michael fool you." She's trying to say that I watched that stuff, but it's not the truth.
I appreciate that, Suzanne. This is why you are my favorite friend's wife.
Oh, so you're the wife of my favorite friend, or my friend's favorite wife, or that?
So of all my friends' wives, she is. If I rank them, she would be at the top.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah,
okay, I got you there.
If she'll
Matt,
make me some of those banana and caramel chip cookies or whatever kind of chip she'd put in those things, then she's for sure at the top of my list too. Mike.
You know what? I've never had those. I might have to drop her down the list a little bit until I get some cookies.
Well, I wish she'd make me some of those cookies, and maybe she'd be at the top of my list. Those cookies haven't been coming out here recently, but she did buy some cookies at the store today, and I ate 2 before I came on the show.
But they're not the banana ones.
They're not the banana ones, but they were peanut butter chocolate.
Are they the hybrids?
They weren't the hybrids, but we get those quite a bit.
Okay.
They're good. So Matt, NFL week 5, which apparently it is. What were some of the big takeaways so far for you?
Well, for me, I think that Tom Brady is really getting old, and his age is starting to show. He's getting old and forgetful. He didn't even know what freaking down it was, and the end of the game, and screwed his team. And obviously, I would be remiss without mentioning Dak Prescott and his old stinky leg. Unfortunately, hate that happened to him. I hope it doesn't affect his contract, him getting paid. He deserves every single penny of what he is going to make. And, I really hate it for him, and I hope he has a speedy recovery. I'm sure he's listening as he's going under the knife.
Yeah, no, Dak is a big fan of the show. So Dak, we appreciate you listening always. And definitely our thoughts and prayers are with you, man. And heal up really good. I know TJ says Andy Dalton's going to be the leader of the Cowboys. Let's hope not for their sake.
I have one more thought though, before we get off.
Yeah. Go ahead.
John Gruden has the Raiders back. He is really getting things together. And DeAndre Hopkins is the best receiver in the NFL currently. Don't at me. It's the truth.
Please at you and get in on this conversation here on the show. Kyle, I know you got one more thing to say. That was one of the things that I stood out. The Raiders knocking off the Chiefs, and little Chucky's got them rolling over there in that crazy stadium that they've got. And then also, man, the Dolphins spanking, just kind of knocking around the 49ers. Garoppolo benched again. Did not see that coming at all. I'm still waiting for Tua time in Miami, but maybe they don't need it for right now. So, Kyle, do you have one last thing you wanted to say about the
No, I mean, I had the Raiders going over the Chiefs. I assumed one of y'all would talk about it, and you both did. I love seeing it. It's fun when it feels like you have a lot of good teams versus, one just, dominating team. So good for the NFL.
Matt, Chucky Nation, I'm a huge fan of John Gordon. Well, John Gordon is a great author, but not to be confused with the coach of the Oakland Raiders, the Las Vegas Raiders. Triple Shot Sports, Matt says the Cowboys win the NFC East at 6-10. That's your Cowboys, Matt. Do you think the Cowboys win the East?
I don't, man. I think that I don't know.
Somebody's got to.
Who does?
The Giants are pretty bad. The Eagles are pretty bad. Washington's horrible. So
I think Washington might be the second best team in that division and might be the best. I don't know. I mean, that whole division, 6-10, might be right. Might be the worst playoff team in the history of the NFL.
Yeah.
this year.
I think, it's 2020. I think they should just say, you know what, you guys are all terrible. So not even your division winner gets a playoff spot this year.
Yeah.
Because of how bad you are. So guys, one of the more notable names that we've seen in college football and the NFL over the past, 20 years, 25 years, maybe even 30 years, has been Manning. And there is a new Manning on the scene. Kyle, I know you're just getting goosebumps thinking about this, and I know Kenny is as well. But Arch Manning, which, correct me if I'm wrong here, is the son of Cooper Manning, which is the older brother of Peyton and Eli. People are already talking about his recruitment. He's a sophomore, threw for 6 touchdowns in his first game. You got to think Ole Miss is a heavy contender in that recruitment, Kyle. But just your thoughts on another Manning quarterback. Where is he going to go to school? Is he the biggest recruit ever? Just given his name, at least off of that. Your thoughts on Arch Manning?
So it's really interesting. If you look at 24/7 Sports, he's actually not the number one recruit in his own class.
Okay.
So to say he's the biggest recruit ever, I don't know. I think he's going to be maybe the most watched recruit because look at what his 2 uncles did. His grandfather is a broken arm away from winning a Heisman. A lot of good things with that Manning name, but there's a lot of pressure. So I don't know the kid, so it's hard. My guess would be he goes to Ole Miss, but as Peyton showed, and then Eli came back and showed, you don't count out David Cutcliffe with the Manning family. So if Cutcliffe is still coaching anywhere, whether he's a head coach or an OC or just a quarterback coach, I would not count out wherever David Cutcliffe is, where Arch Manning would show up. I've seen some film. The kid's stupid good for a sophomore in high school.
Yeah. Well, man, the way you were talking about the family lineage and the grandfather and all this stuff, I thought you were talking about the Skywalkers, not the Mannings. Yeah, it's, it's cool. I mean, I'm not a Manning fan, but it's kind of cool to see now here are their kids that are going to be coming up, and you got to know, especially if it's one of Peyton and Eli's kids that ends up being a quarterback, it's that recruitment is just going to be absurd. And I'm sure it will be for this kid as well. So good luck to him, in his remaining 2.5 years of high school. And, maybe he decides he wants to don big blue at some point in time. I doubt it, but I'm sure he'll end up probably in Oxford and having a good time there. Matt, any thoughts on Arch Manning?
Well, I'll say this, Peyton Manning is my favorite Manning brother. In fact, my fantasy football team name growing up was Peyton's Man Thing because that's how much I love Peyton Manning. Probably shouldn't have said that on there. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I wouldn't have said it that way. But you know what, Matt? Whatever it is that you like to do, brother.
Well, all I got to say is I was a champion. So I won 3 straight championships with Peyton.
I bet you were a champion of Peyton's Man Thing.
I was. But anyway, here, I think he is going to shark the world, and I think he's going to go to Tennessee.
He might. You never know. Good old uncle might pull him in. I guess it all depends. I mean, this kid's a sophomore, so he's got 2.5 years. I'm guessing it probably depends. Is Kiffin still at Ole Miss? What does that offense look like at that point in time? Is Ole Miss a contender again?
Well, he's a pocket passer. He's not even a dual threat, I don't think.
He runs better than Peyton did.
Well, yeah, but I do.
So does my 3-year-old.
I will say, look, we got some Mannings coming up. Are they going to play football? I don't know. I mean, they're all young, but Peyton's got 2 sons. Eli's got 1 son. Plus, we got Arch Manning here. Like we got some Mannings coming up. So, Pop, I know you're listening. I just want you to know that if you give it a few years, you'll have more Mannings to watch on Saturdays and who knows, maybe even Sundays and I promise you, I will get you a jersey with whatever Manning is in the league. I'll get you that jersey with so you can wear it every Sunday, and you'll be a fan of whatever team Manning is on.
He can just swap out the jerseys halfway. You got the noon games, and he'll have one.
You say that he did that when Peyton and Eli were both playing. He would put whoever had the noon game on, he'd put that jersey on, and the late game he'd put that jersey on. If they played at the same time, he would tend to pick Peyton over Eli.
That's a disgrace. That's a disgrace. All right, guys, let's move to another topic. And for those of you that are checking us out here, we're running an extended show this week, so we are going to go pretty well over because we got a lot to talk about. And we had a great interview. If you haven't checked out the interview with Stewart Mandel at the first part of the show, go back and check it out. It was a great interview. He talked a lot about college football. He's the editor in chief for the Athletic college football website. in publication. Matt, something I know you were eager to talk about is what you call the GOAT, and I will for at least for right now. Michael Jordan is a new owner of a NASCAR team. I'll let you kind of get into some of the details about that, but he's an owner of a team. And my question to you guys is this going to be like a Bulls run, or is this going to be a more of a Bobcats Hornets type of thing where they are not competitive at all? Matt, your thoughts on Jordan joining NASCAR?
Well, so they have for right now they're running two teams. They're running Denny Hamlin, which he's a co-owner with Michael Jordan.
Okay.
So he's the brains behind the operation for sure as well. But he is the best driver that they've got. There's no doubt about it. They've got Bubba Wallace. I think Jordan is trying to really imprint and help him along,
Sure.
putting his imprint in there to help Bubba Wallace out because I don't know why, but he didn't get picked up by anybody after this season ended. And I think that that's, a little bit wrong. I think that he's a good driver. He's not, one of the best, but he's for sure not the worst. I think that it's probably going to be more along the lines of the Bobcats Hornets, only because of Denny Hamlin, or only because of them adding Bubba to go alongside of Denny, because more times than not, Denny's going to run in the top 5, but Bubba's going to be, middle of the pack to 25 range. So I don't think it's going to go all that well. I think it's probably going to be a little bit short-lived. But I am excited. I love Denny Hamlin already. I think he's a good driver. I love his swagger, his attitude. I like the way he drives. He's aggressive, and he doesn't take any crap off anybody, and that that's something to be respected. But I think it's going to probably be like a 3 or 4 year thing, and then it'll be over.
So if you guys remember in the Last Dance documentary, it's pretty widely known, Jordan punched Steve Kerr at a practice one day. So Kyle, Jordan going out on the NASCAR track, you think he's going to be punching old Denny anytime soon?
I don't see that happening. Jordan's not, what was it, probably early 30s at that point, late 20s, early 30s when he punched Steve Kerr. He's not that young anymore. I would be shocked if he was at all of the races. He may surprise me, but from what I can tell and what I think, he's probably just more of a large investor and is kind of going to fund this thing, but kind of let Denny Hamlin run it as he sees fit, which to me says as long as there's money being made, even if they're not at the top, if there's money being made by the team, Jordan will stick in it. And so I think it's probably going to last longer than what Matt thinks at 3 or 4 years.
Yeah. Well, it'll be interesting to see. Jordan's definitely, he's got his imprint on a lot of different things, and so I think it's kind of cool. I think it'll be interesting to see how he does. So, guys, one thing I wanted to talk about, I was so excited. I'm a big James Bond fan, and I was so excited that this November was going to be the release of the new Bond. And because of COVID and really kind of everything going on, they have pushed the release date to April. Which to me is like, man, how are movie theaters going to survive? Because this was really one of the last big blockbusters to come out before the end of the year, and now that's pushing to April in hopes that things will be better next spring. So I thought we could, I know you guys are, I don't know if you're big fans or not, but I am. So top 3 Bond movies, and then also, do you think that the movie theaters are going to be able to survive? Kyle, go ahead and give us your top 3.
Top 3, I'll go 3-1. For the number 3, I got Dr. No. Mostly because Dr. No kind of gives birth to one of the greatest villains in cinematic history, and that's Dr. Evil. And number 2, I have Goldeneye because of that movie, we got Goldeneye on 64.
Absolutely.
And it probably is the best first-person shooter video game ever. So I'll take Goldeneye too. And then, the Bond movie that, I know it's not the first, but it's kind of like, this is what Bond is the first time we see it, and that's Goldfinger. Martini shaken, not stirred. Like, all of that comes from Goldfinger, so Goldfinger's number 1.
Okay, Matt.
So I'm going to go with what Kyle said for my first one is Goldfinger. I actually kind of like that one, even though it's obviously really old, but I know that I think you probably were born when that came out, right, Michael?
I was actually born 3 months before it came out.
And then I like Casino Royale, and I like Skyfall.
Okay. Well, man, Matt, we must have copied each other's homework because that's exactly my 3. I've got Goldfinger number 3, also Casino Royale number 2, and Skyfall number 1. Skyfall it's not the most recent, but the one before that. That is, I think it's obviously the best Bond movie ever. It is so good, and it just kind of pulls everything full circle. And I'm very, very excited to see. I believe it's called No Life to Live or something like that.
No Time to Die.
No Time to Die. Close enough. But yeah, I'm looking forward to that one. So
I see how big of a fan you are, Michael.
I know, right? All right, let's get into some quick hitters. All right, guys. So quick hitter question number 1. We already kind of teased this a little bit earlier, but we are now officially in the off season for the NHL and NBA. Matt, do they get a full season in both these leagues in 2021?
I think they're going to be abbreviated. I think they're going to do something small. I think they might do half because they're going to be in the bubble. And again, these players proved or have made it known that it sucks. But ultimately, they're getting paid. They're not going to have to take a pay cut or whatever or not get paid. So I think ultimately they're going to suck it up and they're going to play. But I think they're going to play a half season and then they'll do the playoffs again, unless there becomes some kind of a vaccine, and then I think they'll go out and they'll go back to the arenas starting in January/February.
Yeah, I think they'll definitely delay. Obviously, the NBA normally starts in November. That's not going to happen. But I think in terms of the number of games they get in, I think they get it all in for both leagues. I think it's been proven that they can play every other night, and I know that's not the best thing in the world, but the league and the NBA franchises themselves lost so much money this year. And if they have a way to get people in the stands, even if it's 25-50%, and to have 82 game season, they're going to do it. So I think they get it in full seasons, Kyle.
Yeah, they're not getting a full season in. Even if they get a vaccine out, it's not going to be for NBA or NHL players. It's going to be for nursing home patients, things like that.
People.
Yeah. So I don't think they get a full season in. Yeah, they showed they can play every other night, but they weren't playing 82 games.
It's true.
Every other night they were, I forget exactly how many both of them played in the bubble, but I think it makes a lot more sense to get at least bubble one more season. And the question's going to be money. The owners are going to say, look, we didn't make the money we needed to this year to pay you next year. The players are going to say, but we played and you owe us. So I think it's going to come down to money. They'll come up with some kind of deal, and it's going to be contentious, and people are going to say, why are these rich people fighting with other rich people? But I understand they're all trying to make their money. Yep. And at the end of the day, they're going to come up with some sort of payment system where they'll play, I don't know, 40 to 60 games in both leagues and pay them probably 70-80% of their salary. And then they'll get a semblance of a season in a bubble.
We'll find out. Again, Tampa Bay Lightning, LA Lakers, your champs for 2020 with an asterisk. Quick hitters. Next question. Top 5 Halloween/scary movies, guys. Let's get them through quick. I'll go first. Number 5, I've got Get Out. It's kind of a weird, scary kind of movie. If you haven't seen that, check it out. It's just bizarre. Number 4, I've got The Addams Family. I think it's absolutely hilarious, and I'm a big fan. Number 3, I've got Scream, the original. There's a funny story I'll tell at a later date about that. Number 2, I've got Saw, the original, again, the number 1 Saw movie. That movie just really, I think, kind of set the bar. And then number 1 for me, I've got The Nightmare Before Christmas as the number 1 Halloween movie for me. Kyle.
So at number 5, I actually have Get Out. I thought it was really good. We must have actually been sharing notes, Mike, because at number 4, I actually have Addams Family Values. I actually like that one better than the first one. Okay. And then number 3 through 1 are a little more scary. So 3, I got Carrie. I think it's a really good movie. Poltergeist at 2. And then probably the scariest movie I've ever seen is The Shining with Jack Nicholson. So The Shining at number 1.
All right, Matt, who's your top 5?
All right. So for number 5, I'm going to go with it's called The Purge. I'm sure y'all have seen The Purge. I know it's a little bit, to me, it's not that scary, but it's a good movie to give you a little bit of a, it'll give you a little bit of a scare, I guess. Then that one, I had it written down and I don't know what the heck happened. But I'm going to go with, what's this movie called?
Can you give us the plot? Maybe we can come up with it for you.
It's this. Hold on, Michael. I'll tell you. Hold on.
I don't know. I don't know that one. You're gonna have to give me a little bit more than it's this.
I know. I've got it right here. I'm pulling it up on my phone. It was the same article that I saw yesterday. I'm sorry for the delay, y'all.
So Kyle, how are you, man?
Man, I'm making it. I'm excited to get to the next topic. I'm not going to spoil it for the listeners, but the next topic is going to be fantastic.
It is going to be pretty good.
It's going to be better than this one.
Yes. While we're waiting on Matt, TJ did say, always good chatting with you guys. Take care. We'll see you next week. All right, go ahead. It. Okay. So all you need to do is say clown movie.
If you had said clown, we would have known.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to stutter or I would have said it. But anyway, so Chucky.
Okay.
That movie, man, I tell you, that scared the bejeebers out of me.
It's a little creepy.
Yeah. Then The Conjuring, it always scares you.
Mm-hmm.
And then The Stranger, or The Strangers.
Okay.
That movie, boy, let me tell you what, I did not sleep right for about a month after watching that. Anything I heard, boy, I tell you, I was freaking out. I peed the bed twice.
Oh man, I'm sure your wife didn't appreciate that.
Well, it was before I was married. It was when I was in college.
Oh man. All right, guys. So we got to get to our next topic, which I'm very excited about. And it is, if you're watching our stream here, there's only a picture can do it justice. We're talking about the fly in the room, and to be a fly in the room. And there's only one fly that is the fly in the room now, and that is the fly that landed on Vice President Pence's head during the vice president debate the other night. Guys, the question is, did Pence realize it was on there for like 2.5 minutes? Did he realize that the fly was there? I'm going to say no, he did not. Kyle.
I'm going to say no, he didn't, because nobody can have a fly crawling around on him and not swat at it. So he didn't. But here's the thing. Is it bad that the biggest issue coming out of the debate is there was a fly on Pence's head?
That's not surprising, without a doubt. And I'm surprised, the thing that I laughed about more than anything was, Kamala Harris saw it. And there was, and the first minute she probably did, you could see she was like, wait, what is that, a fly on his? And of course, and you didn't like give him like a hint or anything. And oh man, it was great. Matt, did he notice the fly?
Clearly he did not, but also I'll tell you guys this. I thought it was a fly. It was in my house. Just to be quite honest, I didn't even know it until literally just now that was even a thing. But I also don't really pay attention to political things just because I'm not really that into it.
There you go. Last couple ones here. We'll get into them really quick. All right, guys. So it's the middle of the night. You've got your monitor or whatever have you that you're listening to your child and the baby in the room, and your child starts crying. You and your wife are both asleep. You both wake up. What is the first, and let's be honest here, what's the first thought that runs through your mind? Is it A, that let's see if they go back to sleep? And by they, I mean the child. Is it B, I really hope she hears that and gets up? Or is it C, hi ho, it's off to work I go? Kyle, I'll let you, or Matt, we'll let you answer first.
Well, a lot of the times I kind of pretend that I'm still asleep. I act like I don't hear it. But I know that my wife is hearing this now and possibly my father-in-law. So going forward, I will change that because I can see how that's not very good.
You're not alone there, man. We all do it. And the thing is they do it too. There's no doubt about that. The wives are also like, all right, I'm just going to pretend like I'm not hearing this and I'm going to wait it out and not do it. I'll say for me, and my wife will admit this, I'm usually the one that gets up in the middle of the night if our kids are crying, but we're kind of the let them cry it out family. And so we will definitely, the first thought of both of ours is like, oh God, just let him go back to sleep. And then it's usually followed by me saying, all right, I guess I'm getting up. Kyle.
Yeah, so I'm definitely the one that says, you give it time, they'll go back to sleep. But I know Lauren can't do that. and she won't say this out loud, but she wants to be the one to go in there and get the kid. So I tend to just let that happen.
Yeah, you reap the benefits of that, man. You're spoiled over there. All right, guys. We've got some big games coming up this next weekend. We'll do two quick picks, both in the SEC. LSU goes to Florida in what Dan Mullen is hoping is a jam-packed swamp. Who you got, Matt?
I'm going to go Florida. I think Florida's going to be mad, and I think they're going to beat the bejeebers out of them.
I don't think it'll be a blowout. I think LSU will keep it close, but I think Florida's the better team. I mean, LSU lost to Missouri for a reason. Their defense is abysmal. They do put up a lot of points, but I think Florida will get the win. Kyle, what about you?
Yeah, we'll make it a clean sweep for Florida. I think Florida pulls it out.
All right, then the big game of the weekend, maybe the big game of the season in terms of regular season, is Georgia at Alabama this weekend. You can say all the buildup you want to. It's going to be a great game. I will go first, guys. I am taking Georgia to go into Tuscaloosa against that malign defense that just let Ole Miss put up all those points. I think Georgia's got the best defense in the country. I think that they have a quarterback that can manage the game well. They've got a running game that can keep Alabama's offense off the field. I think Georgia goes in and finally gets one against Alabama, and then Alabama follows it up and beats them in the SEC championship game probably. But I'll take Georgia. Matt?
I'm going – I was yawning, guys. Sorry.
Are you sleeping?
Yeah, I was yawning. I'm exhausted, man. But anyway, I'm going with Bama, and I say that because Georgia likes to start a little slow. I think that Jones and the Alabama front and the running backs and receivers are going to get hot quick, and I think it's going to be hard to slow them down. Ultimately, I think that it's going to end up being like a 17-point win for Bama.
All right, Kyle.
Yeah, I'm going to go Bama here. I think Nick Saban's undefeated against his former assistants. Kirby Smart's a former assistant. This is not a game being played in Oxford. It's a game being played in Tuscaloosa. They're going to have some fans. I don't know exactly how many, but they'll have some fans there. Give me Bama in a close one. It's not going to be what Matt said, but it's not going to be a Georgia win either.
It'll be a good game, no doubt about it. Last two here. All right, so I follow a Twitter account called the Bracketeers. They're awesome. They do brackets, basically 2 or 3 brackets a week, over and over again on Twitter. It's awesome. They're actually committed to come on our show at some point in time, so we've got to come up with a new bracket for them to help us pick out. But guys, they launched a bracket this week, which was the best NES, so Nintendo system game of all time. There's a lot to choose from, and we're taking it back to the 80s for this, late 80s, early 90s. Kyle, it was I know it's a tough guess, but what do you have as the best NES game of all time, and maybe 1 or 2 honorable mentions if you got them?
Okay, I'm glad you said that because I was going to cheat and actually list 3 games here.
I've got like 20.
Well, no, if I really wanted to, I could put a lot on. So I guess I can actually say this is the best one. I think the best game is the original Zelda. I thought that was a great game. As far as honorable mentions, I'll mention 2. The first one, I'll mention Super Mario Brothers 3.
We get the little tail.
You get the little tail and you can fly. Yeah. So I'll go with that one. And then a lesser known game, but it's one that I played a lot, was RBI Baseball.
Yep. Oh, yes.
That had like all the teams were a letter of the alphabet, and the A's were the All-Stars. I don't remember. I think it was the L team were the girls, and they wore the pink. That was a fun baseball game to play. So there you go. So I got Zelda, Super Mario Brothers 3, and RBI Baseball.
All right, Matt, top NES games.
So the top one, in my opinion, is going to be Duck Hunt. I've always really, really loved that game. But I've also got 2 honorable mentions here. Tecmo Bowl. I love that game, and I used to love playing Punch Out.
Yeah.
Oh, Punch Out.
Punch Out's a good one.
Yeah.
My honorable mentions, I've got a list. I mean, Kyle, you mentioned Zelda. It's a great game. Any of the Marios, I think they got better progressively, 1, 2, and 3. Punch Out. Mega Man 2 specifically, was a great game. If you weren't down with Contra, I can't have you on my team because Contra was awesome. I love Contra.
Fantastic.
Of course, the Tecmo Bowl games, Duck Hunt, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Battletoads, Castlevania, all great games. But the best game, without a doubt, guys, is Excite Bike. Are you kidding me? Excite
never
Bike.
played Excite
You've
Bike.
never played Excite
No.
Bike? Oh my goodness, you're muted for the rest of the show. That's a tragedy. Excite Bike, man, it's the greatest
Hey,
game.
did any of y'all? I know I'm just gonna dominate the rest of this show because I don't really care. Did any of y'all play? There was an Olympics game, but you played with the pad on the floor. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
You ran into the hurdle.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
That was a great game, wasn't
That
it?
was a great game, without a doubt. There were so many great games on the NES system.
And you have games with the Power Glove, and that
Mhm.
was always fun.
Absolutely. Yep. The Olympic game with the, I'd forgotten all about that. And was Paperboy a NES game?
I think it was, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And there's just some classics. So
I
All
used
right,
to love playing Crazy Taxi. It's not on NES, but I don't know if y'all ever played Crazy Taxi, but that game was dope.
it was. I've played that as well. I think that may have been Super Nintendo.
Yes.
But yeah.
Yes.
It was a good one. For sure. All right, guys. Last topic, and we'll finally get out of here after a long show. The XFL is back again. I believe starting in 2022, The Rock and company bringing it back. Quick hitter, Kyle, is it back for good or is it back only for a brief period of time game?
Look, there's enough money behind it. I think it could be back for a while. It really just, as the economics teacher, it always comes back to one thing. Like, does it make money? If it doesn't make money, it's not going to last. If it makes money, then, good things at XFL stick around. But nobody does these things to lose money. So it's got the money behind it to stick around. Just, is it going to make the money?
Matt, are you smelling what Kyle's cooking?
I'm not smelling anything here other than just a flame out. I think that The Rock is trying to be the Ballers in real life. I don't know if y'all ever watch Ballers. He's trying to go a step above being the owner of the Kansas City Chiefs like he did in Ballers, and he's trying to own a league. But unfortunately, I think that is going to go horribly wrong. I honestly don't even think they'll ever even play one down of him as the owner of this league.
Okay, interesting. I think they'll get a season in. After that, I can't guarantee anything. So, well, guys, we are just under an hour and 17 minutes, which is, I think, by far our longest show. But we had a lot to get to, and we definitely wanted to get that full interview with Stewart on. So, any last parting thoughts for anybody out there?
Look, the people wanted this. The people wanted more. They told us they wanted more. We gave them more.
And Matt, if I remember correctly, you were out next week, correct?
Yes, I'm going on a sheep hunt in West Texas with my in-laws, and I'm really looking forward to it. It turns out they're not even sheep. They're actually goats that we're hunting. They're called Barbary sheep, but they're actually in the goat family. So I told my father-in-law, I said, well, that's just too bad. But
and that is what we will end on. Matt, we'll see you in 2 weeks. Kyle, I'll see you next week. We'll be back next week with Dad's Watching Sports. Y'all take care.
bye.